Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our channel, AI Era Islamic Abrahamic Wisdom. And before we get started, please do subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and also share this video with your friends. It really helps us out. Okay, let's unpack this. We are doing a deep dive today into something that, frankly, doesn't get the strategic analysis it deserves. The foundational rules of leadership succession and institutional continuity.
It's a topic that's so often viewed through a purely historical or theological lens, but the
Yeah.
political science here is it's incredibly robust.
It really is. And our source material today takes us right into the heart of early Islamic governance. We're drawing from excerpts of Zahir Ahmad Mir's book, The Foundation of Islamic Jurisprudence. Specifically, we are analyzing the model for the transfer of power established by the first caliph, Hazrat Abu Bakr al-Ṣiddīq.
Radiallahu anhu.
And our mission, for you listening, is very focused. This is not a history lesson, not really. It's about extracting universal governance principles.
Right, the applied political philosophy.
Exactly. Things like leadership transitions, meritocracy, continuity, principles that are still so relevant for modern states, for corporations, and this is the fascinating part for me, for governing complex AI systems. So the core question we're tackling is this. How did a brand new fragile state manage its single most dangerous moment, the transfer of ultimate power, in a way that secured its survival?
And not just survival, but in a way that prevented a civil war, which is almost the default outcome in these situations.
Yes. How did it set what you could call a civilizational standard for a constitutional transition?
And to really get that, you have to understand the context, the sheer fragility of it all. This state was, barely a decade old. It was centered entirely around the personality and authority of the prophet. So his passing wasn't just a crisis, it was the ultimate crisis point.
The moment everything could have just splintered.
It's the moment empires usually collapse. You see it time and time again in history. Coalitions break, factions emerge. The whole project just gets devoured from the inside.
So the challenge for Abu Bakr was existential.
It was. He had to prove immediately that the system could survive the individual, that the institution was more important than any one person.
And that's why we're focusing on the political philosophy. We're looking at the deliberate choices, the mechanics of it.
Yes, this was a planned, almost engineered approach. It was designed specifically to prevent a power vacuum, to institutionalize merit, and to guarantee that continuity. This wasn't an accident. It was political engineering of the highest order.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute foundation of this model. The entire thing seems to rest on a single, powerful idea about authority that Abu Bakr established from day one.
The concept of amanat, trust.
Leadership as a temporary trust. And this seems so radical because it completely redefines the relationship between the ruler and the state.
It does. It fundamentally changes the leader's entire approach. The sources are very clear on this. Authority was borrowed, not owned.
So let's explore that. What does that practically change? I mean, if you look at the surrounding empires at the time, the Byzantines, the Persians, power was an entitlement.
It was personal property, a divine right, or something you inherited or something you won in a battle. It was yours.
And if you believe the power is yours, what's the natural outcome?
You cling to it. You try to pass it to your family, whether they're competent or not. You actively suppress any institution that could challenge your personal hold on power. The natural result is autocracy.
But if it's a trust, alone.
The entire calculation shifts. Your goal is no longer about entrenching your own legacy. Your primary job, your duty, becomes strengthening the system for the inevitable handover.
It's an instant check on power, an internal one.
Absolutely. The measure of your success is no longer how great you were, but how stable and just the system is after you've left office. That mindset just suffocates autocratic tendencies before they can even start.
It's a profound distinction. I'm thinking about the legal implications, too. If it's a trust, that means the caliph's actions are subject to review, right? There are limits.
Of course. It immediately requires public accountability. The caliph is the primary trustee of the public good, of the treasury. This is why Abu Bakr insisted on, transparency in state finances.
He wasn't above the law.
He served the law. That idea was virtually unheard of in other autocratic regimes. His authority was conditional on him upholding the trust. If he violated that trust, well, the contract with the community was basically void.
And this ties directly into the institutional implications. You said he was hyper-focused on the idea that institutions mattered more than personalities.
It was a strategic necessity. He knew the state had to be designed to outlive him. The judiciary, the treasury, the military command structure, All of it had to function seamlessly without him. He couldn't afford for the state to be brittle.
It's a problem we still see constantly. We call it founder syndrome in business.
Yeah.
You have this one charismatic, singular figure.
And the personality is the institution.
Exactly. And when that founder leaves, the whole structure just crumbles because it was all built on their personal relationships, their force of will, not on repeatable processes.
And that's precisely why the Amanat view prioritizes continuity over the leader's personal legacy. Abu Bakr understood that to make the system last for centuries, he had to make hard choices, maybe even unpopular choices.
He wasn't optimizing for his own approval ratings.
No, he was optimizing for centuries of stable governance. If your ambition is secondary to the system's survival, you will pick the best possible successor, even if you don't personally like them. You'll structure the transition to empower the office, not the individual.
That concept of engineering your own obsolescence, making sure the organization runs even better when you're gone, that is the highest form of stewardship.
It completely reframes success. It's not about your term. It's about the resilience of the system you leave behind. A shift from charismatic heroism to structural sustainability.
Okay, so that's the foundation of trust. But that trust has to be transferred. Let's get into the rules of succession, because what Abu Bakr chose not to do is arguably the most insightful part of this model.
It is. He consciously avoided the 3 historical traps that almost always lead to destruction.
Right, the sources detail them pretty clearly. Let's go through them. The first one he rejected was what?
Dynasticism. The most tempting of all. He did not nominate family.
And that was revolutionary.
Utterly. It immediately slammed the door on hereditary rule, which always leads to a dilution of merit over generations. It signaled to every powerful tribe and clan that this new state was not going to become just another kingdom.
Okay, so no family. The second rejection is the one that seems, on the surface, politically insane. He did not reward loyalty.
Not with the top job, no. He did not reward loyalty with succession if competence wasn't there.
But in a new state, built on personal sacrifice and alliances, I mean, you build up these massive political debts. How do you manage that without rewarding your key supporters?
That's the strategic genius of it. Rewarding loyalty over competence is the fastest way to systemic decline. You promote your friends, not the best people for the job, and the whole thing rots from the inside.
So it's cronyism.
He avoided cronyism. He made the brutally hard decision that the safety of the state was more important than any personal sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
And the fact that this was accepted, it just shows the level of institutional respect he'd already built. It was governance by principle, not by patronage.
Incredible. Okay, so no family, no rewarding loyalty. What was the third trap?
Sentimentality. He did not allow emotional preference to guide the decision.
So not choosing who he liked the most or who was easiest to get along with.
Exactly. The choice had to be cold, calculated, and strategic. He had to look past personal comfort and select the one person best suited for the state's continued survival and expansion, regardless of how difficult that person might be.
And the brilliance of rejecting those 3 things, family, loyalty, emotion, is how it diffused the political situation on the ground.
It prevented immediate factional conflict. If he'd chosen a family member, every other powerful clan would have seen it as the beginning of a dynasty and started plotting.
But by making it demonstrably about merit.
He neutralized the most common triggers for a succession crisis. The message was crystal clear. This is about capability and institutional need, not your personal connections or who you know. You transform the contest from a potential blood feud into a professional qualification process.
So if those were the rejections, what were the positive criteria? The sources lay out 4 pillars that he used to institutionalize this idea of meritocracy. It's almost like the first formal job description for a head of state.
Well, the first was straightforward but critical for a growing state. Competence.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning demonstrable administrative and political skill. The state was expanding, defining laws, fighting wars. You needed a proven executive, not a figurehead. Someone who understood logistics, governance, and law at a high level.
Okay, so pure professional capacity. What's the second pillar?
Integrity. Moral character. And this is more than just honesty. It means the leader has to be unimpeachable, trustworthy, seen by everyone as bound by justice.
It's the institutional safety lock.
It is. It ensures that the immense power being transferred won't be misused for personal gain or tyranny.
Integrity is the moral compass, but you also need the ability to actually steer the ship.
Which brings us to the third pillar, strength of character. The ability to enforce difficult, sometimes unpopular decisions. A complex society requires tough choices on taxes, law enforcement, military command. The leader needed the courage and resolve to enforce discipline without fear or favoritism, even against powerful internal players. A weak leader would have watched the state fracture in months.
Right. And the fourth and final pillar.
It ties right back to Amanat. It's the ability to protect the system, a focus on stability.
So not a revolutionary, but a guardian.
Precisely. The core duty of the successor wasn't to launch some radical new experiment. It was to protect the established institutions, the rule of law, and the unity of the community. To be a system guardian.
This framework, it's just remarkable. It's almost entirely performance-based. It really did institutionalize merit as the standard for ultimate power.
And it served as a powerful restraint on personal ambition. Future leaders knew that their family name or their wealth wasn't enough. The path to power was through proven service and competence. It's what set this caliphate apart from the empires around it that were still just relying on bloodlines.
Okay, so we have the philosophy and the criteria. Let's move to the mechanics.
Right.
The process. How was this actually executed? Because Abu Bakr didn't just write a name on a piece of paper.
No, the process was meticulous. He was preparing the entire political system for the shock of the transition. Instability loves ambiguity, so he had to make the transition surgical, transparent, and preemptive.
Let's talk about the steps he took before the public announcement. The sources describe this pre-nomination consultation process.
It started with consulting the senior companions. This was the state's core advisory council, its institutional memory. And this wasn't just him informing them, it was him actively asking for their input, their concerns, their honest assessment of the candidates.
So it built a shared foundation for the decision.
Yes, and crucially, part of that was listening to concerns and objections. He invited dissent into the room, but in a controlled way.
What did that achieve?
Two critical things. First, it stress-tested the choice. Every potential flaw in the nominee was raised and vetted. Second, and this is politically brilliant, it neutralized opposition before it could go public.
Ah, because they were part of the process.
Exactly. By making them co-authors of the decision, it becomes much harder for them to rebel against it later.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But, okay, you get the elites on board. What about the wider public? How did he assess the political viability?
That was the next step, assessing public acceptability. A technically perfect leader who is widely despised could still cause a civil war. So the choice had to be someone the community would respect and accept, even if they didn't universally love him.
And the final piece of preparation.
Testing institutional readiness. This is the step that's so often forgotten. Can the system actually handle the switch? Are the governors, the military commanders, the judges all prepared to immediately transfer their loyalty and follow the new chain of command without disruption?
A delay there could be fatal.
It's an open door for rivals to exploit. So he had to ensure the protocols for the transfer were clear and ready to be executed instantly.
And this highlights a crucial distinction in the process. The sources say the decision was collective in process through all this consultation.
But the final decision and accountability rested solely with Abu Bakr's.
So he wasn't delegating the choice to a committee.
No, that would have invited endless debate and paralysis. He gathered all the data, he used the collective wisdom of his council to vet the choice. But ultimately, he took singular personal responsibility. He absorbed all the political risk.
Now let's talk about the announcement itself, the mechanics of clarity. Because as you said, ambiguity is the enemy of a smooth transition.
He engineered clarity into the process. First, he clarified the authority transfer structure. Everyone knew exactly who was taking power, when, and how. No guesswork.
And he did this publicly, while he was still alive.
That was key. He communicated the decision publicly and unequivocally. This killed any chance for rumors or competing claims to pop up after his death. He completely removed ambiguity.
When you think of something like the English Wars of the Roses, all because of an unclear succession.
That's a perfect example. He prevented that by making the choice transparent and known while he was still in full control. The time for debate was over. It was time for execution.
And the final part of that mechanism was ensuring immediate obedience to the new authority.
Yes, the system was designed to pivot on a dime. No grace period. The successor was immediately the head of state, backed by the full legitimacy of the previous caliph. To hesitate was essentially to rebel.
And the benefit of all this?
The benefit was huge. It prevented a power vacuum, that dangerous gap between rulers, and it completely stifled elite maneuvering. Any powerful figure who might have thought about making a move found the political ground was already gone from under them. It was a unified, legitimate front.
Okay, so that's the process. Let's talk about the result.
Mm-hmm.
The selection of Umar ibn al-Khattab. This choice seems to be the ultimate proof of his commitment to merit over sentiment.
Absolutely. It was a strategic, not a sentimental choice. Yes, they were close companions, but this decision was made with the cold logic of a strategist.
Yep.
He recognized that the needs of the state were changing. Abu Bakr's phase was about consolidation, establishing the rule of law after that initial crisis. The next phase would require aggressive expansion, administrative centralization, and building out the institutions of justice on a huge scale. He didn't pick a caretaker. He picked an executor.
So why Umar specifically? Let's
Yeah.
go through the administrative reasons that made him the non-negotiable choice.
First, he just possessed immense administrative strength. He had a proven capacity for governance. He was already deeply involved in logistics, taxation, legal rulings. He was an experienced executive.
Not a novice.
Not at all. Second, his reputation was already legendary. He upheld justice without compromise, and that was essential for the state's moral legitimacy. He was known for being incredibly strict but fair. It sent the message that the law applied to everyone equally.
And in a rapidly expanding state with new populations, that's critical. But what about enforcement?
That was his third great strength. He could enforce the law firmly. He had the strength of character to maintain order and discipline even when it was difficult. He was known for being decisive, sometimes severe. In a volatile time, that was non-negotiable.
And finally,
he protected institutional discipline. This is the key. He was selected because he was committed to strengthening the structures Abu Bakr had built. His loyalty was to the office and the principles, not just to his own personal rule.
this brings up a really interesting, subtle point about humility. The sources say that even after nominating Umar, Abu Bakr didn't claim he had made a perfect, infallible choice.
That's the ultimate sign of a leader who knows he holds a trust, not a crown. He explicitly invited correction and allowed disagreement during the consultation. People raised concerns about Umar's stern temperament.
And he listened to them.
He acknowledged them publicly. But he still moved forward. It emphasized this idea of collective responsibility. He was essentially saying, this is my best judgment for the state, but I am human and fallible. The system must be strong enough to hold even the caliph accountable.
It's a powerful model of leadership.
It is. He sought legitimacy through the process, not just through the force of his own authority.
Let's try to frame this with a modern analogy. Imagine the board of a huge corporation, a global energy company maybe, and it's facing a crisis.
Okay.
The departing CEO, our Abu Bakr figure, knows they need a ruthless executor to restructure the company. The candidates include popular internal figures, his loyalists, and then there's one candidate known for being difficult, but who is an unparalleled administrative genius with total integrity. Our Umar figure.
Right.
The Abu Bakr model says you choose the genius, you choose the firm hand. The fiduciary duty is to the long-term health of the organization, and that trumps popularity or personal comfort every single time. It's a commitment to institutional effectiveness.
That's a perfect analogy.
So let's synthesize all of this. What was the immediate historical success of this model in the 7th century?
The results were, frankly, miraculous compared to the historical norm. First, the transfer of supreme power occurred without any violence. That was almost unheard of.
No bloody succession struggle.
None. Which leads to the second point. It avoids civil war at the state's most vulnerable moment. The process created so much legitimacy that potential rivals were politically disarmed from the start.
And that, in turn, must have strengthened the legitimacy of the state itself.
Tremendously. It showed that power could be transferred based on principles, merit, law, consultation, not just by force or inheritance. It gave the state a constitutional authority that was morally superior to the empires around it.
And it set a precedent.
A profound precedent. It became the gold standard, a model for constitutional transfer that was, when you look at it, centuries ahead of its time.
So zooming out, what was the long-term impact on the political culture?
It was transformational. It protected unity by preempting those factional disputes. It ensured continuity by putting the system first. It institutionalized merit, creating a deep bench of qualified leaders.
And it restrained ambition.
Yes, it channeled ambition away from violent power grabs and towards a drive for excellence in public service. It redefined leadership as service and stewardship, not inheritance.
Okay, now let's bring this into the 21st century. How do these principles apply to our modern challenges? To states, corporations?
The relevance is stark. The model demands, first, planned leadership transitions. You have to have mechanisms in place to prevent a collapse when a key leader leaves.
Second,
Merit-based succession, always. Actively fight against that founder syndrome, where you only look for a clone of the predecessor.
and it also demands the avoidance of personality cults.
Yes. The system has to be robust, not fragile. If it falls apart when the figurehead leaves, the system was flawed from the beginning. It's about preserving institutional memory, making sure the knowledge and processes outlive the people.
And here's where, for me, it gets really interesting, the AI governance angle. This ancient model gives us a framework for thinking about technological power transfer.
It really does. As we build these powerful AI systems that manage huge resources and infrastructure, we're creating a new kind of entity. And we face the same succession problems.
Who governs the system after the first generation of developers is gone?
Exactly. How do we ensure these complex systems don't fall into the wrong hands? We need to build in constitutional restraints from the very beginning, right into the code. We need formalized ways to manage the transfer of authority in AI systems without disruption.
The ethical handover of power and data.
That's the core of it. We need transparent logs, audit trails, and formalized mechanisms to ensure the system outlives its founders and that its purpose, its trust, remains fixed on its original ethical mandate no matter who's at the controls.
It's political stability theory applied directly to computer science. The ultimate test of your design is how well it functions once your hand is removed.
Whether you're building a nation, a business, or an AI, that's the universal constant.
So after all that, what does this mean for you, the learner? We've unpacked these foundational principles of governance from a moment of crisis. Let's just recap the core lessons. Authority is borrowed. It's a temporary trust amanat, which imposes strict accountability. Merit has to prevail over emotion and personal ties, and clarity and consultation are the keys to stability during any critical transition.
And just think about that final image of Abu Bakr on his deathbed. He wasn't trying to cling to power. He wasn't securing his family's position. He was focused purely on institutional accountability, making sure the state was ready. It's the ultimate proof that true leaders know when to leave and they make sure the system is ready for it.
Which brings us to the final principle we can take away from all this.
A leader's final success is not how long he rules, but how well the system functions and how justly it operates after he leaves.
Stewardship over ownership. So here's the provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive. In our modern world, which is completely obsessed with personalized branding, with celebrity CEOs, with political leaders whose name becomes synonymous with the institution, what critical institutional failure are we risking by prioritizing that personal legacy over systemic continuity? The lesson from this foundational model is clear. Systems must be built to be leader agnostic, and we have to ask ourselves if our modern institutions actually meet that ancient, robust standard.